sky's not blue.
Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I am your host, the Scholar of Spite and the Saturday Night Delight, Roger Riddell. Joining me today, he's the frontman for Chicago noise rock band Something Is Waiting, Eddie Gobbo. How are you doing today, Eddie?
Hey, good to be back on the show. I'm doing great.
Yeah, you guys have a new live album coming out on October 24th called Livelick.
We do.
So I guess we can start out talking about that.
Sure. So good to be back. Like I said, we usually do interviews on your podcast, which, by the way, is crushing it. I've had a great experience watching a lot of episodes. I always give you a review every time I see you, but it's great to be back. We like to kind of catch up every time there's a new release coming out, and this would kind of fall in that category. The last time we talked was when our last record Absolutely dropped, and now this is not. It is a full-length LP that we have coming out, but obviously, as you said before, it's a live record, so it's got a different feel than the last LP, which was wrote songs, recorded them, all new material. This is all obviously known material because we played it live, but an interesting venture coming up, so we're really excited about it, and it does drop October 24th, and at this point, all the initial reactions have been, oh my God, a live record, because that this day and age in the year 2025, that's not very common. In the 80s and 90s, it was. And we've been, I wouldn't say made fun of, but a lot of people always kind of refer to us as a band that is throwback-ish. Even though, honestly, and I'll say this, I always give people the Pepsi challenge with it. If you find a band that sounds like our band from yesteryear or even today, let me know about them, because I don't know what we kind of carved our own sound. So we're not really that much of a throwback, but I understand where they're coming from, which is we have a very kind of old school sound that we're manipulating in a current day and age. So it makes sense that we would do something like a live record, but first and foremost, we never went out of our way to make this record. What we did was we got a habit, which a lot of bands do, of recording our sets live. And then what happened was we examined one particular set where we played an Empty Bottle, and it was really good. And you could tell the times where, as a band, where you're tight, or honestly, I feel so bad for so many bands in the underground scene. It's not so much as how tight you sound most of the time, it's how tight you sound in that room. We play a lot of venues where the environment isn't as favorable. Empty Bottle is a great one. But if you're setting up in a corner, or you're setting up in a small stage, or the sound guy's not dialed in right away, it's not really going to work. But that particular set, we said this sounded really, really great. And what we did was immediately kind of went to the table with, what if we mix this a little bit? Because we had everything tracked separately, and we happen to have video, which is another habit we formed over time of the set. We would always kind of set up GoPros just to have something for visual material. And then we mastered it, and it just kept getting better and better as we go on. And then finally we approached our label and we said, hey, what about releasing a live record? And Reiner, our label head, immediately was stoked on it, because I believe we had just released our last LP about 2 years ago. And we plan on kind of going back in the studio to do our fourth, or begin recording our fourth sooner than later. So it's a nice bridge between those two.
Yeah. The thing that stuck out to me about the album with the mix on it, as I was listening to it, like, one, I think it brings out a lot more of your kind of like White Zombie influence. But the thing that really kind of stuck out to me in the mix was that it almost sounds like the way that like Typo Negative's Origin of the Feces is mixed, which is funny because that's a live album that's actually a fake live album.
Sure. So I agree. Sounds similar to that. It sounds similar to kind of how Kiss Alive in a way was mixed. There's two ways you can mix a live record. When bands really started to do that, they kind of Good example would be like that we all know if you're listening to a metal podcast is probably like Pantera Live 101 Proof. They did a thing probably where they set up mics that were probably in the crowd, like one in the back of the soundboard and all that stuff. It wasn't direct read signals. They wanted to give you the experience of being at a live show, like right in the center of a live show, which is great. We obviously don't have that budget. We don't have that capability. And honestly, we never thought of making this a live record. So we had to do this, which is we had to kind of give it a live feel, which it does. And you can hear the crowd and all that stuff, but it's coming straight from like the stage almost. So it's a lot more on top of itself than these other old school live records that if you hear the Motley Crue live record from 89 or whatever that was, it's like, it's big as shit. And they had mics probably at the middle of the stadium or wherever they were and all the way in the back and corners. And they probably added some in, you know, they probably did that whole thing. But so, yeah, it's going to be a different live feel than your average live record from back in the day for sure. But another thing you mentioned is the White Zombie thing. It does kind of showcase what we do live, which is a lot of people don't realize if you haven't seen us that we have a lot of shit going on that's not related to the stuff that the people in that moment are playing. We have sound clips live. We have obviously samples and stuff like that. And then also the main thing would be we're a 3-piece that executes everything we do live. So when our guitarist Bill rips a solo, for example, which we do 100% live, there has to be, it's very known how it works these days, but there's like a looper on and then it ends up hitting and then that comes on during the solo portions. And then as soon as that ends, the guitars will drift back in. So it's kind of, it's a hybrid between a band like Local H, which I think we brought up before on your podcast. And then the other one would be, just any bands nowadays that are doing a band I saw that's excellent at it is Ryan Patterson from Coliseum's new band called Photo Crime from Louisville.
Yeah.
And that he's just riffing, and then he'll hit like pedals and stuff, and he'll go off, and there's loops and stuff, and has this super thick full sound with one dude playing it. It's amazing. You have to be very gear savvy in order to do it. But our guitarist Bill Fay definitely is. And I'm really glad at the way it came out because it all showcased what we do live, which is execution live. And how are we going to make this sound good on stage, but not like a programmed fucking mess? You could tell that's a live band playing. And I like that. It's kind of walking that line because there's the other side of it too, which is when you go see certain bands, these are like the newer bands. You go into their set, and believe me, I don't go out of my way to catch these bands, but maybe you'll see them at a fest or whatever. It's literally like listening to a record. If you see a Falling in Reverse clip or whatever of them playing live, it sounds like the fucking LP. And I guarantee there's backing tracks. There's all this insanity going on that we're not aware of for them to get their result out there. But then there's the other side of things where bands go on and they kind of do their version of what it's supposed to sound like, but it doesn't really translate live. And I think we hit a sweet spot nice in the middle where you could tell this is still an organic live band. But at the same time, we got a little bit of, some bells and whistles going on.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring up Bill's rig too, because I think the record really showcases how much he's able to do with that. And I think like here in Chicago, there's probably like the other closest person to that is Donna from Juna with what she does with the bass in their live performances.
No doubt. Seeing Juna do that is great. We've seen other bands on the road do stuff with sophisticated rigs. Bill Fay's rig is something that honestly is really something that caters to him and kind of him only. It's really crazy, but it's actually, as soon as I figured it out, it's pretty simple. It's one of those things where it's just like, he kind of invented it. He's got a lot of fucking things going on. What's happening right now is there's a big movement of people using digital heads for guitars. But I will say this, which is the Something Is Waiting guitar sound is not your normal digital head sound, if you will. It sounds we modeled it after kind of like an Orange head and maybe a Sovtek, stuff like that. So it has a very organic rock and roll band sound, but it's sophisticated in the tech way. It's really elaborate. And also another thing too is this, which is I kind of don't like to talk about it much because I don't do it justice. Bill's the only guy that really knows how to have a conversation about it. And every time that we've had a conversation in person when we're on the road or whatever, I'm not saying I lose interest, but it goes over my head. And then I'm just like, whatever, that whole thing. But I'm starting to get the bits and pieces together over time. But yeah, it's sophisticated, but simplistic in a way. And I think it's outstanding. It's really, really cool. And again, the way it kind of started was it was evolved loosely from what we saw a band like Local H do, which is the Scott from Local H. When we played a show with him at Cobra Lounge, actually, it was the initial lightning strike inspiration to us because at the time we were going to be parting ways with our bassist. He said he needed to leave the band because our schedule was getting more and more rigorous as time went on, which is great because I'll say something about our band, which is we didn't really start out by being a band that said, like, we want to hit the road a lot necessarily. We wanted to do step A, which is the Chicago thing. And then we kind of started to get wanted certain places. Then we realized that let's keep pushing the ball up the hill. So upon us seeing that we needed to go on the road with someone, it's either we hire a bassist to kind of just do whatever we tell them to do until they kind of claim their place. It's really hard to describe what we do live and what we want to put across on record. If you get it, you get it, but not every heavy musician might. And it's kind of a hard fit. So when we went with the whole, we're going to do a more evolved version of what we saw a band like Local H do, which is basically run through a guitar rig simultaneously with a bass rig and not need a bassist. It was liberating in a way when we finally found out how to make it work, which was very soon after that. Because then we said we don't really need to add another member to the band. It's not always the best adding members to the band, especially when the band gets rolling already. It's already rolling. Sometimes it's nice to inject fresh blood, but also it's mixing with the fucking recipe. So we were very, very apprehensive about that. I'm really glad it worked out. But again, it worked out sooner than later. I don't remember us missing a beat at all.
Yeah, it's a really tight live record, and I think the only thing that that I think it was lacking as far as a live album by you guys would be the banter from the
Yes.
stage, which, oddly enough, me talking shit about your stage banter is how we became friends in the first place. But
Isn't that awesome? Here we are 20 years later, whatever that was. So cool. I've always, and I agree with what you're saying, but here's the thing, and I want to maybe use this opportunity to address the Something Is Waiting fan base, if you will, who kind of have been bringing that up to me lately. This is a very good problem to have. Our band is now 3 LPs deep, and we're writing our fourth right now. And when I say writing our fourth, we're not kicking around ideas. We have about 9 songs demoed. So we're going into the studio sooner than later. Anyone who supported me during my banter years, God bless you. Love y'all. You know what I'm about live. I really don't have the opportunity to do that anymore because if I did, we'd be playing less songs and we have so many fucking songs we need to fit in now. So our set is evolving to the point where we're pushing the limits. We just played a show, and by the way, shout out to Motherless. We played a great record release. Their record release show was 2 weeks ago. Great show, great band from Chicago. But those guys will tell you, we were up against a curfew that night that there had to be music done by a certain time. And we played 9 songs that night, or we were supposed to play 9, and we had to cut one because it was like, otherwise the other band, Motherless would have got cut and it would went from there. And it's like, we don't want to do that. So I don't really have the opportunity to banter anymore. It's either that or I don't fucking play songs. It's one or the other. And it's like, we kind of have to push the songs first and foremost,
yeah, dude, how fucking killer is that Motherless album though?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Great for those dudes, man. It's awesome. By the way, shout out to Motherless because anyone who hasn't listened to the record, I guessed on the first song on the record. And it's not I don't know if it's the first song on the record. I have to look at the track listing, but it's a dope song and it's called Weaponized Goodwill. And I'm very stoked to have guested on that. And also I once guested on an Atlas Moth record, which I was very stoked on. And any band that I work with in the studio, I take it seriously because to be asked is flattering, but at the same time, I need to bring something to the table. And also, that was a pretty minimalist one comparatively, but I double up the choruses with their vocalist Stavros. I think it comes across really well because him and I have a very nice, there's a nice contrast between our 2 vocals. So
Yeah.
it really worked out well. So I'm proud of that song, but also, dude, seeing him live, and that was probably my third time seeing him live. Everyone in Something is Waiting has seen him live a few times. We're all very pleased with them. I mean, they write great riffs, and it has a distinct vibe that, this isn't a motherless podcast, so we have to eventually hit off. But like,
Yeah.
I can talk to you all day long about their influence and stuff that are coming across. I think it's a really cool record for sure. So great for those dudes.
I mean, just one more thing on that. I know that you mentioned guesting on their first track. You and I were also supposed to have been in the Reptile Dysfunction video.
Everywhere. I think my summers go very insane. Where
Yeah.
I'm supposed to follow up with people and I don't and whatever. It's summer in Chicago. Love it. I actually love it too much. But the places that I get dragged when it comes to what fest or who's in town or birthdays or and I love all of it. Love it so much. But I did miss my call time for that or whatever. But I saw the video and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's a great video. Are you all going to put out any videos for Livelick, considering that there's also a lot of footage from that show?
Sure. So the whole thing, couple things about Livelick. It's a double-sided LP, which I believe there's I think 11 songs on the record. No songs were cut, no songs were edited in any way. So what you're hearing is the exact same execution. So you'll hear errors on the record, which is the way a live record should be. We did nothing of the sort of editing. From there, it all came from one show, which was recorded at Empty Bottle in Chicago. It is going to be accompanied with a download card that is going to feature the entire video of that live performance with the record you're hearing synced up. So it's going to be like almost like a live DVD as well. It'll also have a couple other bells and whistles that are included in the packaging. The packaging is pretty fucking cool for this one. So if you haven't pre-sale bought it yet, please do. You're going to like what you see. And it will probably ship, obviously, around October 20th or whatnot from our label. But it is going to, be accompanied with a full, it's actually multi-camera shot performance. We had 3 cameras that were GoPro set up, and then we used our friend Blake Bickles, a great film editor. He's from the band Bronson Arm, who's on our label. We did a tour with them last summer, and as soon as we got off tour with them, we remembered when we were hearing this live stuff and what we could do, and we knew we had footage. At least I remember distinctly when we would get on the road, or we would get to the venue every day, the first thing Blake would do was like kind of do his work on his computer after we loaded in. He would do some editing and stuff for his projects that he would do. And I was like, let's just get fucking Blake to do it. And the key is this, which is I could hire any video editor on the planet, but if they don't know how a live set's supposed to be or come across from a certain band, it's not going to work. It's going to look like shit. He not only knew how it was supposed to come across, and he was working with 3 cameras, so it's like not like he had a million things. He didn't have a camera that was live going through the room, but he had just seen us play live 10 shows in a row or whatever. So he knew exactly how it was supposed to look, come across, feel. He knew the changes and stuff. Came out really well, especially working with. We were like, this whole project of this live record is kind of rubbing 2 sticks together. It was all like we had these live track things. We barely put any time into that. Came out sounding good. So it started with the performance. If we sucked that night, we wouldn't have got to the next step. Sounded good in the room. Started mixing it a little bit. Everything just kept getting better and better. And then we worked on the video, just all kind of lined up. Very organic.
No, like I was at that show too, which I think I mentioned to you a few times over the last couple of years. Like the first time I got COVID was after I went to that show.
Yeah. I remember a couple people in hindsight after you said that, maybe getting COVID. It was bad. Yeah, it was like there was a uptick in that around that time, and it was still a great show though. And thanks for being there and sacrificing the COVID.
Yeah. Well, no, I was there that night with like a Tinder day.
You know what? Now you mention it, yeah, that's awesome. I do
Um,
remember.
yeah, like I don't know if she remained a fan after that show, but I mean she seemed like she was stoked on it after the fact. So
I will tell you this, which is she'll never forget that Tinder date because I mean I don't know what happened after that, but when it comes down to it, as far as the first part of the night, she'll be like, I went to a cool club in the city, and then also it was a memorable Tinder date. Most Tinder dates are absolutely fucking horrifying. So That was probably there. At least was a cool, and I believe that was a weeknight too. So it was like a no harm, no foul Tinder date.
Yeah, it's Monday night.
Hilarious. Yeah, dates. If you're going on a date Monday through Wednesday, it's probably the best for everyone. So if it sucks, it's like, oh, dude, oh, I fucking left the house for this, like one of those things. So,
Yeah.
but really glad to hear that. And it's funny because we played North Carolina not too long ago. I don't remember seeing her there, so I don't know. You should have sent her a DM. Remember those
Yeah.
guys? They're coming through your town.
Yeah, how great is the sound at the Empty Bottle though? Like I think out of every venue that size that I've ever been to, like that spot has some of the best acoustics.
I'm gonna, dude. When we go around on the road, particularly, people reference that venue all the time, and they say that's the touchstone venue for underground music in the city of Chicago. And I'm gonna say this as nice as possible. They really gatekeep a little bit with particularly what heavier bands play there. There's a lot of bands that we know that it's not really whatever I call it artsy, or I mean, it's a negative term, but like hipstery enough to get in that club. I mean, if you're a brutal death metal band from Chicago, you're probably not going to be playing Empty Bottle that easily, or it needs to
Unless
be.
you're cyanide.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, Cyanide too, though. Like, I mean, and I think I've seen Cyanide there. Cyanide there. They have like that smidge of that like black and roll hipster thing to it. So because of that, it kind of fits in. But we're a band that honestly we've played Empty Bottle a bunch, and we're really lucky too because it always goes really well, sounds really good, and every type of the renownedness it has when you go out of state, it all fucking makes sense. It is our St. Vitus, if you will. Vitus was a little different, and RIP St. Vitus, one of the best venues ever. To play it was amazing. Sounds similar to Empty Bottle, similar size room. There's a formula to it, which is you have to be in certain areas, which they were in Bushwick, Empty Bottles in Ukrainian Village, bustling area, great sound, big but not too big. It's like a whole thing that kind of works into itself. And then the legacy has to form on its own. Empty Bottles is a perfect venue that has had so many killer bands, and there'll be bands where I believe, and I'm not fucking saying anything weird. I'm dead serious when I say this. That record was recorded, I believe, the night before Jack White played Empty Bottle. He played there like the following night, or it was like the previous night. It was definitely in the same week. So like we played the same stage as Jack White, who's a top 5 rock star in the fucking world. And like
Yeah.
we've never really talked about that. We're like, oh, that's cool. It is what it is. But you'll go to Bottom and you see like Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth. It's a venue that gets bands on the way up and gets them on the way out a little bit, which is really fucking cool. It's great legacy venue, but at the same time, you'll see bands on the come up that are sick. You'll see great local bands there.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's also the same stage as Bruce Lamont, a top five rock guy from Chicago.
Oh, dude, I've seen Bruce crush it there so many times. Probably my favorite show that Bruce ever played there was, well, we played with him once, which was awesome. His band, one of his side projects, Brain Tentacles, we played with there, and it was on my birthday. It was us, them, and Child Bite, and it was my birthday. Like I couldn't ask for a better birthday like ever. So like
Yeah.
that's my favorite birthday of all time. We played Empty Bottle with those 3 bands. And also, I saw Bruce fucking and Yakuza set it off once, and I remember I distinctly got there super late, and it was freezing out, and it was a packed. I believe it was the rec release show, and you couldn't fucking move. It was like one of those like slam sellouts. That was a time where the scene in Chicago was really like lit, and I think a lot of people. I still give it high praise. I love it. People moved away during COVID, and it's still kind of coming back a little bit to what it was, but a lot of people were at our show. We played with Motherless. It was great, and shout out to anyone who was there. The next night, I went to a rad show with featuring Ready for Death, who is Nate from Immortal Bird's new band. He's in there. He's in that band now. It was a great turnout. So the scene's coming back, and shout out to anyone in it. But yeah, shout out Bruce.
It's funny, like there's a handful of people that I've met in the last few years who primarily know of Bruce from his time as a bartender there, but don't necessarily know about his music stuff.
Yeah, I think I kind of was not victim to the same thing Bruce for a long time was victim of, but I started out being in bands, but then I started immediately wearing another hat, which is booking shows. And I've been booking shows since I was 18 years old when I started going to DePaul University, clearing out tables and chairs from an empty classroom, which I rented out for $100 and throwing a metal gig. And I did that for fucking years. And then I eventually graduated DePaul after having a bunch of badass bands come through there. I remember Weekend Nachos played there. I remember Bong Ripper played there. They went on to greatness. Modern Life is War. I remember being there. So many bands. And it was because at the time the Fireside Bowl in Chicago had closed down. And we were really looking for a venue that was like an all ages option. And then eventually what happened was those all ages individuals grew up and they're like, yeah, let's go see a show at Bottle or whatever. But yeah, I held it down there for a while. And then ultimately I started getting access to club calendars after that and doing a lot of booking. What I'm driving at is I was the dude that everyone's like, oh, that's the guy that books whatever club. He's in a band. And it's like, yeah, he's in a fucking band. You know, that whole thing. Or probably how I met a guy like Stavros back in the day was when you would book the good bands and you said, like, this is the cream of the crop, you would then talk to him and be like, I got a fucking band, dude. Let's fucking throw it on a gig. It's going to be sick. And then the fucking show that you and I met each other at essentially was an Atlas Moth show with my old band Jarred Loose at a
Yeah.
club that I booked. And that was a sick show. And I believe Ken Mode was on the show. Like that's
Yeah, that was his Ultra Lounge.
yeah. And that dude, I booked Ken Mode a bunch. Like I booked that venue Ultra Lounge. I booked not their first time, but it was their I saw their first time in Chicago. It was at a house show. The second time Death Heaven ever played Chicago, I booked it and it was at Ultra Lounge. And I'm just saying it to laugh about it. I think we had about 25 paid. And then they went on to packing and destroying draws everywhere around the globe. You know, but I had heard that band. I'm like, this band's sick as fuck. And then they went from there and it was awesome, but I booked them. So it was cool. But like, yeah, I wore a couple hats, man. And like, then also I ended up evolving into doing the merch thing. I have a merch company and I started getting involved in that game. So I wear many hats in the scene, but I take all of them seriously.
Yeah. Dude, like Ultra Lounge was a great fucking venue too, now that I'm thinking about that again. Like that's a
Oh
bummer
yeah.
that that place ended up closing.
If you ever think about, so many people say, man, Ultra Lounge was sick. I remember that place. It was awesome. I take credit where credit's due for that because that was literally my envisionment of a metal venue from start to finish. I was there when the stage was built. I helped build the stage, and I said, "This is how I want it to unfold. I want to." When there was times where they would book DJs that were not metal-esque on the other side, there was two rooms, which is there was the venue and there was one adjacent to it, which was just the bar area. When they would do that, when it was not in conjunction with it, they'd have like a club DJ or whatever, so be it. But when I would have the ability to have both rooms, I would say, all right, man, I'm going to book some DJ or I'm going to DJ on one side and do metal shit, get the room rolling, and then fucking run the show on the other side. And there was a back patio. The room I wanted to, I knew that club wasn't going to be like a punk club that would allow like a bunch of stickers on the wall and stuff. They were really clear about that because I wasn't the
Yeah.
owner of that place. But I said, here's what I want. I want a dark metal environment vibe. I don't want you walking into, I walked into a venue recently, which I think it was, I'm not going to try to rip on it, so I'm not going to name it, but going to a very, very aggressive metal show. And you walk in and the lights are on and there's jazz music playing. And I go, this is not the vibe you're trying to fucking create. This is going to be a vibe that I want to leave as soon as I finish watching the band I came to see. I don't need blaring metal music in it, but it's nice to have a low volume sort of thing, just setting a tone. The dark vibe, it didn't help matters at the time. I remember it was very, the heavy metal community loved cigarettes. And that venue had a million places you could smoke cigarettes. You go out front, there was a back patio, and then also for the people who were like on the insider, there was backstage areas where people just go out and have a cigarette. So everyone was just like, it was the metal spot, and it had a great, I believe, 3-year run until what happened was there was a hip hop night that I had nothing to do with, and there was a shooting at it. And then what happened was at the time there was some strikes on the liquor license of the venue prior to me even getting in the mix with it. And that was the final straw. And now it's a bridal shop.
Yeah.
So that dude, with venues here today, gone tomorrow, you got to have your shit fucking lined up tight. There's a lot of moving parts to it. There's people that are drinking and they're drinking hard because they're doing shots, beers, whatever, and they're free roaming. A lot of shit could happen. So it wasn't their fault. It was just like a great moment in time, though. Nothing but fond memories, though.
Yeah. That kind of sounds a little bit like a bar in Evanston from when I was in grad school that I won't name, but we were just talking about
We were.
another place that was in that same location that just shut down because that spot had this whole weird premise where you had to like get your own beer, which I
Yeah,
still don't understand that.
don't understand it at all. There's a brewery that is in right by Ultra Lounge where it used to be. There's a brewery that makes you order from an iPad. There's no bartenders. And I think I'm not drinking at a bar without a bartender. That's just a kind of me. Maybe I'm old school.
Yeah.
Some people like that where they're like, all right, I could do this whole thing. But I'm kind of thinking that sometimes the bar industry outsmarts itself, where it's like trying things that are detrimental to it or trying to do too many things. And then you I'm not going to rip on this bar, but Gabe, Aiden Alexander from Something Is Waiting went to a Nine Inch Nails show recently, and he loved it. He went to a bar prior, and when you are in the area of a big venue and a big concert, there's going to be people that are pre-gaming there, and you might not want to get caught with like your pants down and be like, you don't be equipped. So you could like give a bunch of people who want to pregame a million beers and you make up a lot of money and everyone's really happy. And maybe you could do a thing where you're savvy and throw on like, a Nine Inch Nails X or esque mix or something, just setting the tone a little bit. It'll go a long way. You'll make a lot of money. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, the place that I mentioned that had the weird like get your own beer policy or premise or whatever it was, the gimmick for that restaurant. They still had bartenders because you had to like check out through the bartender.
Okay.
It's like, what's the point of still having these people if I have to get my own beer? And then like you don't have this whole setup figured out to where it's expedient for me to get out of this place because if the bartenders aren't working off of a tip for serving you, then they're not as like attentive to you. And so like it took me 40 minutes to get out of that place after I was done there because like I had to wait for someone to like finally be back.
I went to a venue in Chicago recently, saw a rad fucking show. They made you settle up. It was a brewery. They made you settle up after every drink. So I would buy a beer. They would run my credit card. I'd buy another beer. They'd run my credit card. But they were doing that to all the patrons. So good luck getting a beer.
That's kind of a thing now with like from what I've heard with Gen Z is like they don't keep tabs open. Like they just settle after like every drink.
Hey, I don't want to live in a world like that. It's just
Yeah.
a lot. But another thing too is this. I'm okay with living in that if I'm paying cash. Where I'm like, all right, whatever, $5, whatever, here's six, peace. And we're all good. If I'm paying with a credit card, I can't be running a credit card after every drink. That's going to get obnoxious and quick. And then also I'm going to drink less because I know that there's a chore involved with it. And if I could easily drink, you're going to make more money off me and everyone else. So let's not go that route. But if we do, then I'm just going to not go to those places. Fucking crazy. I believe it though.
Yeah. What would you say? I mean, speaking of Nine Inch Nails, and just the fact that we were talking recently about how I also generally don't enjoy live albums that much.
Sure.
That reminds me, like one of my favorite live albums of all time is Nine Inch Nails and All That Could Have Been, which I think is from like 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. It was after The Fragile came out. And part of why I like that album so much is because the best versions of songs from like Nine Inch Nails' first album, Pretty Hate Machine, are always the live versions. Like I always end up preferring those over the studio version of that album. And I think that live album has probably my favorite recorded versions of like Terrible Lie and Sin.
Totally.
Just the
Those
mix
are
on
great songs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We probably not. I love the Pretty Hate Machine record. It's probably my favorite Nine Inch Nails record. They are never a band that 100% resonate with me, and you'll maybe understand this comment, but dude, I've worshipped so many bands, and it was just when you hear them, you're like, this is great. But at some point or another, when Manson got involved in like '95, where there was that project, I think you kind of it was you could be a fan of both, but people kind of chose sides a little bit, and they're like, which is going to be the band I champion more, and I went that route. I just liked the whole kind of more rock and roll presence that initial Marilyn Manson band had, and but I've always checked it on Nine Inch Nails, and then again talking with our drummer Aiden Alexander, like that's one of his favorites, and then he's in a situation where as soon as we got home, or he got home from that show, he was inspired by it to the point where he's like, this is one of the best shows I've seen in my life, live shows. He cannot say so many, like enough good things about Nine Inch Nails live. He's traveled. I know he went to California to see him once, maybe a couple other places. But when you're involved in a great live setting and you become a great live band, which is when that was recorded, you probably had a bunch of people on stage. Obviously, that's going to unfold fucking awesome live. And then Trent's definitely a master of recordings. Just he's fucking outstanding at it. So his band is going to sound sick on a live record for sure. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, because I mean they put a lot of effort into that stage show too, with like all of the lighting and effects and stuff. Like they're probably the one band that I've ever seen from a nosebleed seat where it still felt like it was worth it seeing them from a nosebleed seat. Because like they had one song during their set when I saw them in 2013 in DC
Yeah,
where there was a camera going around Trent during that song, and it was projecting this giant hologram of his head around the stage.
very cool. I've never seen him live. I've heard nothing but, and I've seen every band live. I've never seen them. I've heard nothing but amazing things as far as it being a great live performance. And then he was talking about apparently the set started with a DJ in the middle of the show started with a DJ in the middle of the room who's named fuck, what is he called? It's called uh drawing a blank on him, but he has a kitschy little fun name. Crushing it the whole time, gets everyone amped up, and then eventually the curtain of the actual stage rises and Nine Inch Nails are on stage. And then they did some songs together, and it was an event. It was awesome. I loved hearing what I was being told about the show, and I was like, this is great. So, yeah, man, a live show could do one of two things these days, which it could be inspiring like that, but I think it has to be a band that really puts the show 100% in their own hands and says we want to do something that is an experience for our fans and our fans only. Nine Inch Nails, they might headline Lollapalooza, but they're not doing a thing where they're going to play fucking Louder Than Life Fest or whatever, where there's 40 hard rock bands on it and they're all getting different versions of what it is. And there might be, I'd love to see a band like Fear Factory on that or whatever, but you're getting a newer Fear Factory without the original singer. And then it just becomes a fucking wheel of that shit until finally a banging headliner goes on, maybe like a Slipknot. But also, if you see Slipknot on their own headlining arena tour, it unfolds like that Nine Inch Nails show, where
Yeah.
it's there's all their gimmicks up and all this stuff, and they'll have a reduced live set for that fest. And that's the dangers of going into the fest environment that we're going to, where the majority of badass shows will probably be under the fest umbrella. But there's some cool things about it too. So, it's a trade-off for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's always kind of been my hang up with fests is that you never get kind of like the full experience, especially of those bigger bands because they have to cut their sets down and they have to cut down the stage shows so you don't get to see like all of the um like whether it's pyro in some cases
Oh yeah,
or and I think Rob Zombie might have been a little bit of an outlier to that when I saw him at like Mayhem Fest one year because he still had the giant robot and all that shit that came out.
totally.
But it still wasn't the same as seeing him headline on his own.
It's different. I agree. Same thing when I saw Rob Zombie last year at it was Riot Fest. Similar. There's something is waiting has we've gotten bigger, and first of all, shout out to anyone who's helped make us bigger over the last 2 years. I think that's the last time you and I talked. Basically, was around 2 years ago. But in getting bigger, we've played since we talked a lot of fests. Out of all of them were out of state, and we had to become a band that went from being a club and bar band to also being a fest band, but we couldn't forget how to be a club and bar band. A fest band is basically you going to a fucking gig and probably about 3 days, it's actually usually about 2 weeks before. They'll say, here's your set time, this is your stage you're playing on. If there's multiple stages, you have to use basically 90% of our backline. You have to use a full drum kit, that's ours. Here's the specs of it. You have to run through our cabs because we're not moving cabs on and off stage. You can put your heads on stage, and you have this amount of time dripping wet, which is usually around 30 minutes. Something is waiting. We always get issued about 30 minutes. Dude, there were bands that were playing that were super legacy bands that were still getting around 30 minutes after us. So 30 minutes is the commonplace thing now. It's becoming very, I'm getting bored of this band, so I have to get away from it, even though that's really a slippery slope. Because if you see some of these hardcore fests that are happening now, and God, shout out the hardcore scene, I fucking love it. The hardcore scene is having bands go on fucking ripping 10, 15-minute sets now. You know, it's just like, I think something gets thrown away with that, which is it's getting to the point where everyone's like, all right, I need this quick and I need to get out of here. I need to be on to some other band or whatever. But we had to learn to become a fest band. We had to go on and get on stage accurately with a bunch of gear that wasn't ours. And we've done it many times since then. And it was something that we consciously went in and said, we need to turn this corner because it's one of the luxuries of being a band that gets bigger. You get asked to do fests and stuff. So we're not going to be like, no, well, we really like to use our own gear and we really like to headline and we like to do 40 minutes, which we all like to do. But we had to get in that fest world, and it's been great, to be honest with you. I think I see more of it coming from us.
Yeah.
Different animal, though. Certainly a different animal.
Yeah, I mean, I think with some of the hardcore bands too, though, there's a lot of hardcore songs that are just kind of short, like 1 or 2 minutes. So I guess a lot of those bands can get more of their songs into a 15-minute set. Like I saw
True.
Iron Reagan at Barbecue one year, and they squeezed, I want to say a dozen, it was at least 2 dozen songs or something like that into
Totally.
the we had.
I'm starting to realize something organically, which is as we're writing these new songs, our songs, if you listen to our live record, Livelick, pretty much every song is 3.5 minutes. I'm analyzing these demos we have, which ultimately we're going to be recording soon, because we're trying to get more and more music on stage to present to people during an allotted time. Our songs have kind of drift towards around 3 minutes and 10 seconds. We've organically cut off a little bit of fat because we're we need to fit more songs in. So anything that would be pseudo gratuitous, maybe we're saying, let's just run that a little bit. A band like Iron Reagan, they were kind of like a Municipal Waste. They were definitely a Municipal Waste spinoff band, but they were more to the point. Definitely, they had some minute and a half songs or whatever. And it's funny because right after that band kind of started to do their thing, I noticed on the Municipal Waste records, that's another band that has to go on and open up for Cannibal Corpse, and they'll get 45 minutes, and they need to play a lot of songs. They started to cut down their songs a little bit and be a little less gratuitous and more 2 minutes something songs, But just I feel that I never want to be a band that rolls into an out-of-state environment particularly, and there's people that come up to us afterward and say, I wish you played that fucking song. I want to if it's an obscure song, I'll be like, dude, I'm sorry. We really don't play that one a lot. But if it's something that we usually play and they expected us to play, I kind of want to play it. So if we have presumably 10 new songs coming on our next LP, I don't know how we're going to do all this shit other than we need to streamline this, So It's a good problem to have, though.
What would you say are probably, if you had to name them off of the top of your head, your top 5 live albums of all time?
Sure. Pantera, Live 101 Proof, Slayer, Decade of Aggression are my number 1 and number 2, and they change constantly. Metal live records. I am a huge fan of 2 old school live records that would be Bob Seger, Live Bullet. Talk about one of the best sounding live records ever that have better songs on the live record than the recorded versions previously. Like you said about Nine Inch Nails. The original Kiss Alive is unreal. My favorite one, though, is a live record. And if you're even remotely into this dude, you should listen to this because it's fucking unbelievable. Is a live record by John Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater Revival called Premonition. Came out in, I believe, 1990, somewhere around then. And it's his band completely fucking killing it. They are so good, and it's mixed so well, and it sounds so great, and it's the tightest fucking band I've ever heard. And I've actually gone out of my way at times. I'm so enamored by that record that I've gone my way to see if there's studio edits on it. Best I know, there's not. It was just a band fucking in dead stroke killing it. That's my favorite live record. And there's many too, like that I'm missing, but like I just hit you with about 5 records that in my opinion are classics. The Fogerty one though is a curveball that a lot of people don't listen. The other 4 I just mentioned are pretty staple live records.
Yeah.
Check out the Fogerty one if anyone's out there into Creedence Clearwater Revival, listen to that record. It's unbelievable, and the set list is great too. And they play about 25 songs or something. It seems like it's about 20 plus. That's another thing about a live record is I like a big live record. I almost like double live records. If I guarantee if we feel the need to do a live record in the future, we'd probably do a double live record because we do a headlining gig where it'd be like us and another band and go out there and do like fucking 20 something is waiting songs and build it up. And I think that would come across really fucking well. There's some songs that they're great, but we haven't found a way to work them back into our set again. And it's not that they're collecting dust. There'll be a time and a place for them, but I want to start playing them again. I want to play the new stuff, you know? So
Yeah.
a lot of songs, but yeah, it's something in the future to think about for sure. I love live records, man. I really, really do.
If you did another live record, would you do a new name for it, or would you do kind of like a Kiss gimmick where it'd be like Livelick Jr.?
Live, I would probably knowing our band, we'd probably advocate for a takeoff of the first LP name, but it's something different.
Yeah.
You know, like Lick Live as opposed to Live Lick or something. You know, something like that. And that was another thing too. A lot of people have asked me about the title of the record. I think it's all just I needed and I really advocated for a live record that had the word live in it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to put out a record that's fucking called whatever. I mean, Home Improvement. I'm looking at a Home Improvement t-shirt there from Tim Allen. So when it comes down to it, if I said Home Improvement or whatever, it wouldn't be necessarily something that would resonate with, oh, this is a live record. It need to have the word live in it. And also,
Yeah.
the
It's like
layout's
when
really
Aerosmith put out like a Little South of Sanity. Like you don't know
true.
off the bat that that's like a live album.
True. And then also, there's a badass live record that I didn't mention, live bootleg from Aerosmith from fucking late 70s. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal live record. And I knew, that's a live record. So the live record was very important back in the day because it was another way to know there was less bands. And then also it was a way to fuel people to come to the gigs. You'd be like, you want to see this live, listen to this for about a year. And then eventually this band's coming through your town and you're going to be there with bells on. It's going to be sick. It was awesome. It was like the best thing ever.
Yeah. Like speaking of the album name too, I know when you first mentioned that you were going to put out a live album, like I had also joked on doing a takeoff of Kiss and having it be called like a comma live.
I mean, I like that a lot. Yeah, Livelick, I think, I don't know, it's just stuck. That's not bad, though. That is
Yeah.
not bad. And also, I think a lot of, I've been thinking about the band Kiss a lot lately, even more than usual, because they just kind of wrapped it up. And I'm like already having the feels. And also, dude, everyone says he's the biggest asshole ever, but if you ever want to question Gene, believe me, he has problems. He's very egotistical. He has said so many awesome, awesome things about Ozzy after Ozzy died. And he keeps giving interviews and he says things with such humility. He goes, dude, he did this interview recently where he was talking with the interviewer and he goes, here's the thing, man. I met Ozzy a million years ago. He's so fucking genuine. And he goes, when a person like me let ego get in the way, and didn't lower themselves or tried to be a rock star first and foremost. He goes, that guy would talk to everyone the fucking same. He goes, it could be the biggest rock star in the world. He'd be talking to Paul McCartney. He'd be talking to his neighbor. He could be talking to his fucking gardener. He was the same fucking person. And Gene envied that. And he always gave him a shout out. So, like, shout out to Gene for saying that because, again, he gets a bad rap. Some of it's deserved. But when it comes down to it, he acknowledges that he fucking had pitfalls in his career where his ego got in the way, where he's like, I don't want to talk to that guy or I'm too cool for this, X, Y, and fucking Z, But Ozzy had it right and Gene acknowledged it. I loved hearing that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this for Gene too, is that like he essentially created a model where musicians could make money like more readily outside of just music with the mass merchandising of everything.
Sure.
Like to some extent to that degree, he's kind of like the George Lucas of like hard rock. Like they did the comic that had like the vials of their blood poured into the ink. They were probably one of the first bands that had like action figures of themselves.
Totally. Kiss, in a way, at least for me, was an influence on Something Is Waiting's merch because I said we need strong merch. We need a strong merch presence to do this. I'll give a shout out to people who buy the Something's Waiting merch. Dude, we do staggeringly good numbers, man. And like, I'm so proud of it. And I'm not bragging about a fucking thing. I'm just saying for a band that's on an independent label that we are handcuffed a little bit with touring. We do tour, but what's happening right now is the touring market is very, very fucking saturated to lengths I've never seen. Because when you, for example, go through a city like Chicago, we didn't even go through a city. We live in Chicago, right? We knew our job was going to be good for the show that we played at Burlington, and people wanted to come out and see us, so on and so forth. And it was Motherless's record release show, and a lot of friends there, whatever. That weekend had Oasis, My Chemical Romance, System of a Down playing 2 shows, hundreds and hundreds for a ticket each. Okay, no one's going to have the time, energy, or money to go to a local show at a regular bar venue the night before, night after on a holiday weekend. They're going to be spent. That's happening all around the United States. From there, you have fests to compete against. You have fests that aren't even in your same underground music vein. If you're from fucking Naperville and there's Naperville Rib Fest and ZZ Top's playing, even if you're not a ZZ Top fan, you're going to check them out. And you're saying, I'm not going to the underground show. A lot of competition. So for us to do the merch numbers we do is a testament to those who like us, and we're fucking so thankful. And also, the more we move, the more we want to reinvest in printing new designs, new ideas, that whole thing. And the dust is finally settled. In case you're wondering, Something Is Waiting for the time being doesn't really have any new t-shirt merch coming out, but we have a lot of stuff in the fucking works for it. We have designs that may or may not be canned right now, just waiting to be released, maybe for the October holiday season, if you know what I mean. And also, we have ideas that we write down throughout the course of touring. Stavros is our one and only art designer. He's fucking amazing. And we've had such a fucking good year with it that it's just phenomenal. It's just, we're so thankful for it. And again, we do great numbers when on the road as well. And it's just, we're very blessed in that regard, because it's like people are into it. They're interested. They want to wear our shit. And we love that, So yeah, Kiss was a massive influence with that.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite shirts that y'all have put out was that Cradle of Filth parody where it was instead of Jesus is a cunt, it was Jesus is a cunt. It had Kanye on it.
Guess what? He is a cunt. And he's one of the worst dudes, and that shirt's fucking amazing. And I love that. And it's funny because when we fucking released that shirt, we couldn't roll with it to certain venues because we'd be like, here's an example. We'd go to like an underground metal club. Hell yeah, we could totally fly that shirt up, But when we go to like a brewery and it's like, believe me, the brewery's rad or whatever, but a brewery's a little bit of a different vibe. And breweries are really, really having a presence with booking shows these days. Look around the United States where bands are going through. They're going through all these breweries. We can't be like, here's Jesus as a cunt when there's a fucking literally like a family right next to it, So that was a kind of like a speakeasy type shirt. But one thing I know is like we released the Black Sabbath shirt that was meant to be in 100%, and it was our final tribute to the band Black Sabbath going into their final performance. That's what it was. And I'll never forget that shirt because of it. we haven't talked about it, never do anything Black Sabbath or Ozzy related again because of it. And that's amazing because that was our final tribute for it. People bought the hell out of that shirt. I loved it. I love seeing it on people. It says on the spoiler, if you haven't seen the shirt, it says fucking Black
Black
Sabbath
Sabbath and White Castle.
and White Castle, which to me is heavy metal culture personified. Like that's what it is, which is it's two things, which is you go to the fucking gig and then afterwards you fucking reward yourself with the meal afterwards, hang out with your buddies. That's your day. And nothing could be better. It doesn't necessarily need to be the band Black Sabbath, it doesn't necessarily need to be the band White Castle, but that's the experience, which is the before the show, at the show itself, and then the fucking, afterwards where you're getting a fucking shitty meal.
Yeah.
It's all it's part of it.
I mean, that's probably the shirt of your all's that I wear the most. Like that and the Melissa one with the Tinder thing. It's got like a King Diamond reference and
My
like
mom's
a
favorite one.
reference on it.
My mom's favorite one is that she did a thing where she fucking I saw her wear it recently, and that's a funny one too. But dude, when it comes down to it, like we're very again the people wearing it make our merch more than us making it. People tag us all the time. We always share it. We always do this. We always see fucking. I get so many.
I listen to All Kinds of Music is the other one that I like a
Oh,
lot.
dude, I love that one. And also when it comes down to it, people. That one's really cool. Maybe we'll be reissuing that soon, but people have been requesting us reissuing certain things because a lot of our dude, I got to update our merch store. A lot of our merch sells out, and then when it comes down to it, it's you got to do a thing where you either say we're either reprinting it or we're done with it, forever. And if you have it, you're in a cool club, But it is what it is. And then also it sucks because when we go on the road, sometimes we do a thing where we get back home to the local shows in Chicago, and some of these shirts have already pseudo sold out. Or like they'll be like, give me a large, and it's like we rip through all the larges when we're on the road. So we gotta start doing a different thing, maybe printing a little bit more. But dude, again, very lucky, and we stand by all our merch and stuff. It's really really cool to see.
Yeah, I still need to get the Ozzy Reading Rainbow one too. Like when you made that shirt, did you know that Ozzy was dyslexic?
I didn't use it as a pillar, but I definitely knew that he was dyslexic. Yeah.
Like it's just putting Ozzy on a Reading Rainbow shirt.
Mm-hmm. That was actually we wanted to do a shirt too that had a lot of meaning, which was one, it's always good to have Ozzy on a shirt. And I remember a lot of people, and we were very proud of it because we didn't go out of our way to do it because we wouldn't patronize the community like that. But a lot of people bought that shirt and they wore it to like Pride, their Pride parades because there was a rainbow on it. And that is like that's badass. So it's like great, amazing. We don't want to be ever a band that, like, here's an example, like say Ozzy died and then we released an Ozzy shirt the week after. Some bands probably have done that. We never did that, and we never would have done. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a little bit too much cheap pop. We're all about being ahead of the game, and dude, fuck yeah, like it's amazing. You love to see it. So good feeling.
Back to like Kiss with Alive. How do you feel about the other like 3 or 4 Alives?
Kind of the same way I feel about the Iron Maiden's a really good example. They've had some live records where I'm like, they really didn't need to do this one. And also,
Like
I think
Live After Death is like their definitive live album.
agreed. And then there was a few other ones. I think there's maybe 3 other ones, and I'm just like, no, it didn't. Maybe even more than that.
Oh yeah, they've got like 5 or 6 live albums, I think.
Totally. You need one definitive one, and then I would argue you could get more material. What I think would be the baddest thing ever is say there's a band that's a real legacy band where they have a live record that puts probably their first 3 records in a live setting on tape. You hear them rip through it, and then they do a live record many years later with none of that original material on the live record. So now you have 2 live records with no repeat tracks. It'd be amazing. And bands don't do that because there's flow to shows, and every Maiden show you go to, you have to hear the Trooper and so on and so forth. So it becomes redundant. But you're right, that's the definitive one. And when bands kind of just keep regurgitating live records, it's kind of it's a different time. I think bands are kind of. There's one band that people will swear by their live records, and it's actually Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam has been releasing live records in they're not full releases. They're like half releases where it's like, all right, we're gonna print a bunch of copies of this performance we did in Chicago that we had the right vibe. They record like all their shows.
Yeah,
their fans are fucking crazy, and they like the fact that Pearl Jam, you literally show up to a show and you don't know if you're going to hear Jeremy that night, a live anything. They might go old school, they might go new school. You have no idea what you're gonna see that night. And they call it like before the gig, like they sit in a room and they write a 30-song set, just how they free flowing, how they fucking feel. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But that's really the only type of band that could have multiple live records because every show has its own sort of feel, you know?
Yeah. Like Metallica kind of does the same thing because they've got
Yep.
on their site where you can go on there and for any live show that they play, you can get a copy of it. It's like if you went to see them last year in Chicago and then you really liked that set and you wanted a copy of it just for posterity, you can go on their website and like buy a copy of it either on CD or like digitally.
Amazing. Yeah, I know Metallica's, the best. They are such an experience live. Dude, I get chills when I hear that they are still fucking doing it, and when I see it, it's amazing. Saw Pearl Jam, they're still doing it. These are bands that, for all intensive purposes, have they're survivalist bands. They just keep going, and they never. I guarantee those bands fucking fight cats and dogs. They've had to make changes along the ways. Matt Cameron, their longstanding Pearl Jam drummer, probably the definitive drummer, just left the band, and he'll probably return. Amazing drummer, but he's actually starting, which is gonna. I'm really fucking stoked to hear it. They're starting a side project, which is Matt Cameron and Kim Thale and Chris Novoselic. So I don't know if they're doing a band that's going to be a band that does Nirvana songs and Soundgarden songs and their own kind of shit, but I'm interested to hear it. So that's worth him kind of leaving, but he is leaving one of the biggest bands in the world to do it that people kind of wanted probably to see him grow old with, you know? So, but again, people kind of go in and out of bands all the time. And Pat Smear is a good example. He was in Foo Fighters for a long time. He left and he came back and it was fucking hotter than ever, you know? So
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, like the Kiss Alive albums, I think my favorite one just because of what an oddball album it is the fourth one. Because that was the
Yes.
one where they had a symphony and it was like after that whole like run of the late 90s where you had like a lot of black metal bands that started doing symphonic stuff and then Metallica needed to do a symphonic live album
Sure.
and then all of a sudden like 2004 Kiss are like we're doing a symphonic album now. It's like a double album and so there's the symphonic set, there's an acoustic set, and then there's a normal set. But the thing that always cracked me up the most about that album was that they did a cross promotion with the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater video games.
Oh, yeah.
And so on Tony Hawk's Underground, you can unlock all four members of Kiss.
I definitely
And
remember
then
that.
there's like three Kiss symphonic live tracks on there instead of just the mobile
Hilarious.
version of those songs.
Those guys never cease to amaze with that. Makes no sense why they would do it, but it makes perfect sense for Kiss. Awesome. I love the Kiss live record. One of my favorite MTV Unplugged ever is the Kiss Unplugged. It's so badass and it sounds so fucking good. I mean, it's hard to fuck with the Nirvana and Alice in Chains one. It's those are unbelievably classic records to the millionth degree. They're amazing, but the Kiss one is the shit. It's just a badass record, and they do great acoustic versions of certain songs. Fucking, they bring out Peter and Ace for songs. It was awesome. So yeah, Kiss knows how to bring it live, and I'm sure there were edits on that one, but at the same time, they did have a full video of that as well, video special. Really cool for sure.
Yeah. No, my favorite, since you mentioned Unplugged, I think my favorite oddball Unplugged is also the Corn one, just because
Yeah,
it's like not something that you would expect to have as an unplugged experience.
Amy Lee from Evanescence doing "Freak on a Leash" with John Davis, like that's really cool, and that's awesome. I agree. That was an oddball one. That was fun.
Yeah.
Korn's really going to be one of those bands that age super well into a legacy. I don't think they're ever going to be as big as Pearl Jam and Metallica, but like it's just there for them. And it sucks they lost certain members along the way, or certain members are kind of in and out of it. Fieldy, in particular, who everyone rips on as a bassist, but they're on fire right now. Korn is amazing. I saw clips of the performance that Bill from Something Is Waiting sent me when they played Lollapalooza this summer. They absolutely fucking destroyed it, and it's so funny because they got that set that was like right before Olivia Rodrigo, and they're just like, yeah, we're going heavy, old school Korn with this, and we're just gonna beat the shit out of you for an hour plus, and they did it. Awesome.
Yeah. I think that their fourth album Issues that one's aged particularly well. And I think also the follow-up to that, Untouchables, is like their definitive album.
The Untouchables record is definitely the record that sounds the best. It sounds unbelievable. I would
Like
say
that's their like
probably
Black Album level album, I think.
it sonically it's one of the best sounding metal records I've ever heard, and that's a hard band to engineer. Um, their first record and Follow the Leader, might be a little more definitive. I can't rip on that
Yeah.
record though. It's just so fucking good. Issues was a little bit of, I think was labeled by some as a misstep, but I will say this too, which is there's still great songs on it, and they're a band that has released a lot of material. If you talk to people like in our band when we're writing new stuff, we have to we're we're a band that has a lot of consequences if we don't put out our best material each time we do it. It needs to keep getting
Yeah.
better and better, or else honestly we're probably fucked. Because when it comes down to it, the underground scene is a lot more here today, gone tomorrow than when your last record sucks in the underground scene. That's the first nail in the fucking coffin. It
Yeah.
really is. I've heard so many kick fucking ass bands, and you're like, that band's awesome. They just put out two great LPs in a row, and then that third one, they tried this, they did this. Maybe they lost some members. Maybe they wasn't as focused. Maybe they were too busy being on the fucking road and other real life things to actually sit down and write. And they regurgitate something out. They're fucking done, dude. The next step is them taking a massive hiatus or starting side bands and that whole thing. So it's really a fucking gauntlet, and we need to do a thing where we make sure our records are tight and focused, and we need to write. Another thing too is this is the hardest. Even though it came out very organically with the songs we're demoing, dude, we put together a live record, which took some time with mixing and mastering or whatever, and wrote skeletons of nine-ish plus songs while we were on the road having our busiest schedule of our career over the last 2 years. If you look at our past schedule, we were on the road fucking like we were like, we're not a weekend warrior band because we'll go on fucking and play shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's just that once again, the markets are saturated to the point when these weekend shows try to get rolling in a rad environment, everyone's spent. So we would go out every weekend for sure. And we didn't, as soon as we started the Absolutely record cycle, we left the gear in the van until we played the show the next weekend, the shows. We never unloaded.
Yeah.
The gear stayed in the van for almost a year straight. And we went on every weekend because we're like, if we unload, it's going to be one more movement, and it's a bitch to unload. Everyone is in a band knows loading in and out sucks. And we also had to really trust each other because what happened was we ended up going on the road with what would be probably about probably about 18 songs that we knew how to play. So we had various songs that it wouldn't be 18, I'm sorry. It was probably 15-ish songs or whatever, and we would have different sets. And we had to trust each other to keep our mental and physical chops up to play them, because the next time we would play them would be the following weekend, and we didn't have time to bust it in the studio. The only time we'd do it would maybe be to sound check if we had one that evening. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, we're not a band that sound checks. We don't have that luxury. So it took a lot of trust and focus, and it was awesome because we ended up not burning ourselves out with the load ins and the load outs, and we were able to throw gasoline on our schedule. We did a lot of shows over the last 2 years, and it's awesome. That was one of the things that allowed us to do that.
Yeah. I feel like you guys have been doing at least like a run every like month and a half to 2 months from what I've like noticed.
We definitely have, and it was a thing that we said we were going to come out hot, and we were going to try to kind of use the buzz we had to our advantage and then create a secondary buzz. And then it worked. We were able to get certain shows and we cracked so many new markets this year. It was ridiculous, and it's awesome. And then we got fans everywhere, and now we've gone back to many of them since. Dude, we played your city. We played fucking Louisville 5 times on the Absolutely record. I'm not exaggerating that. We played Louisville, I believe it was 5 shows. And it was great.
Yeah.
And I don't remember any of them being bad. I remember us having to compete against certain bands some nights, and it would be like, all right, it could have been sick as fuck, but then we'd catch the lightning in a bottle where it was like, guess what? No other shows are going on this night. We're all at your gig, and it was awesome. So, dude,
Yeah.
it's great. And we looked back and we worked really hard. And one thing that we're not doing is trying to slow down, because you slow down, you fucking go down. That's it. It's like keep fucking rolling. And then also we'll get to the point where one day where we could take a step back and maybe call our own shots a little bit. We're not a band at that point yet, because our scene doesn't allow it. Where when you're in the underground scene, you are really at the mercy of playing the fucking gig. You're not Oasis. You can't take 20 years off. You can't. I mean, sometimes people do that for like a Maryland Death Fest type deal, and I don't really support that as much than the bands that get out and fucking crush it, all the time, that are still trying to be active and stay relevant and stay oiled, you know what I'm saying? And think about
Yeah.
their bands and what they're doing. And you can still take time off to write and record and do that whole thing, but you got to have the plan.
Yeah, no, it's cool y'all are able to like figure all that out too, because like just around like regular jobs and all that shit. Like I know especially with Iden, like he's a lawyer and everything. So I'm always fascinated that he's even like able to fit everything in because I know he's super busy at this
Yep.
point.
We work our asses off and then we leave. And then
Yeah.
sometimes the pen drops and we're literally in the van going. So that's it. But when we're on the road, we blow off a lot of fucking steam, and that's awesome. And I have gone back into my office, which is basically my merch company, on a Monday morning after playing Thursday, Friday, and fucking Saturday last year or whatever, or a few months back. And I'm like, wow, that was a great cathartic experience. I'm excited to get back to work right now to crush it, get my desk clear as soon as possible to go back out again. It's awesome. And we had a couple longer runs as well where we had to kind of put everything on ice at home, where it was like work's gonna I had to really, really make sure my work was planned out accordingly to get all my projects done and leave. Talk about Iden Alexander, man. He's got a very, very important job. He juggles it amazingly. And because at the end of the day, man, I'll speak for everyone. We're not people that want to have these successful careers and just follow the money and the capitalism, whatever. We want to work to support our music habit first and foremost. And that's it. If we lose this, we're going to become fucks. You know what I'm saying? And that's
Yeah.
it. Like, it's the second it's gonna be a domino effect. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just like, nah. Like, for now, we love playing music and we still have a real big zest for it, which is awesome. So, well, while we have it here and it's very present, and we're not fighting to get that. A lot of bands you see will go on stage. You could tell they're like, I'm trying to fall in love with this again. And it's like, no, not for us. Like, we're balls deep in it, dude. Like, that's it. We're all about this shit. When we go up there, we fucking love everything about it, and it's sick. And there's good times and bad, and it's hard. Weather sucks. Competing against other shows sucks. I'm gonna be honest, man. Our money really doesn't suck, because like we go there, we always make pretty good from the door. We always sell merch, blah blah blah. We're really comfortable in that regard. We're fucking super lucky. But the logistics suck. It doesn't suck. It doesn't help matters when you miss friends' functions back home. When it's like, oh, I can't go to your, whatever, your birthday party that's a landmark birthday because I'm going to be out on the road that weekend. We plan this shit very far in advance too. It sucks when someone hits you up, like a family member, and they're like, "Hey, I'm getting at you super early. We have this huge function that's coming up 3 months from now." It's like I'm already booked. It's a shit feeling, but it's what you love to do. You got to do it. Got to find a way around it. Kind of make it up to when you get home.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've had you for a little bit over an hour now, and like I
Always, man.
know
I
we
love
both
talking.
probably need to eat at some point. So, is there anything else you want to put out there before we get off here?
Live record is up for pre-sale. Anyone who's bought it so far, thanks. You guys fucking rule. I know it's moving right now. I know more people are going to be buying it. I hope people check out. We've dropped actually 2 tracks now. If you want to examine what it's about and hear it. But again, when you buy it, you'll be really stoked on it. I believe the packaging. I'm really stoked on the artwork. You're probably going to get a little bit of some shows from us after that related to the live LP. But then our next order of business will be going into the studio sooner than later to record our follow up, and not really break stride with that, and then ultimately, then the big touring begins again, like we did for Absolutely last year. But anyone who supported us on this last 2-year run we had, it was the best 2 years of the band, and thank you guys. We met so many rad people. So got to talk with so many people. We played with so many amazing fucking bands. It was the best 2 years of the band, and it was, it was great. It was awesome, and I think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that we brought something to the table that I think people really liked. I think our record, a lot of people say positive things about it, and then doors open that are positive from there. And but we really, really appreciate any help that we get from anyone along the way. So cheers, and that includes you, man.
No, I think with album number 4, you need to start putting out a Something Is Waiting cardigan.
Yeah, I know that's been talked about.
Yeah,
That
that
has
can
been
just say
talked about.
thanks. It's a, thanks, but it's a pullover.
Yeah, it's funny is I got pulled over by a cop recently. I got a court date this week, actually, come to think of it. And I said, no, it's a cardigan, but thanks for fucking noticing. Its face. So fuck the police. Yeah. So I'll let you know the next time we talk on this podcast when the fourth record comes, I'll let you know how the court date went.
Yeah, have a good one, Eddie.
You rule, man. Thanks, Roger.